Back when I started uploading videos to YouTube, I had no idea what was going to lie in front of me in terms of travel. And these days, I'm on the road quite literally 300 days of the year, non-stop exploring. And I feel incredibly lucky to have been able to find a career path where this is possible, but to travel around, chasing cars, attending events, meeting so many people, and to have turned what was my passion and my hobby of both the world of automotive, but also technology, cameras, social media, into something that I get to do on a full-time basis, to travel from, well, every continent across the world. And, back at the early days of shooting content, nobody really knew where social media would go, what direction all of this would head. And I knew I liked going to events, for example, from London, where I'm based, the quick hop over to the Geneva Motor Show, one of the biggest events for the launch of new supercars, or to come over to the US for Car Week, for example, in California, to travel and mix in these different things together and see so much of our wonderful planet. Now, over time, it's grown and grown and grown and grown. Road trips, adventures, finding new places, but also so many opportunities to uncover and discover new things. So it's gone from probably trying to ask for a few more days off work than my employers might have liked back at the time, to now pretty much living out of a suitcase, to quite literally have a bag ready to go all the time. We never know where we're going to end up, what we're going to need, where we might be, but also because my primary thing is filming supercars, I need luggage that can fit into very small boot spaces, very small trunks. And that's certainly a challenge that I never envisaged back in the day. Now, at the moment, there are a few key things that I plan my year around. A few key events, for example, rallies or big auto shows. There are slightly fewer of those now in the schedule than there were a couple of years ago, pre the whole COVID period. But there are things that are absolute musts that I know under any circumstance, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be at that event. But the thing that I find is there'll be an event here, then 2 weeks later, then there'll be an event over at that place. There's some people I met that live between those locations. Maybe I can go and visit them. And it ends up becoming this kind of constant daisy chain of different opportunities, especially out here in the United States. The car community varies so heavily, but there are so many different locations and different things that are interesting to do. And people are so passionate about their cars, about what they might have done in terms of modifying something, or the collection they've accumulated, or the events they're hosting and putting together. And it always means that there are never enough days to do everything. I can plan a month on the road across the country, and it ends up being a night here, 2 nights there, 1 night in the next stop. We're off. We're go, 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 constantly checking in and out of hotels. I've kind of gravitated towards the places that I like staying the most. I kind of know roughly where I want to be, which chain to choose, which hotel, to be honest, in each different city. But all of the big events, understanding how they work, makes everything a little bit smoother as well. I think when you're growing up, getting into cars, and you go to a big Formula One race or something for the first time, you have no idea the lay of the land, you don't know where you want to be, you don't know where to watch it from, what to do. And when you've been lucky to go to many of these things, you can kind of plan it out in advance. And of course, because I'm doing this to create my video content, I'm also very heavily theming what I do around optimizing the efficiency of it. I know I'm being really detailed with this, but I love travel. I love putting together itineraries. I've always loved planning road trips. I always loved the idea, the freedom, the ability to hit the road, to go wherever you want to go, and to just kind of roll with it quite literally in the car. And when I was a teenager, and you have to be 17 to drive in the United Kingdom, I was growing up looking forward to that day I would have my first car and that I could just go somewhere. I could just take an adventure. And with a friend who was very similarly minded, we planned that as soon as we finished our school, our regular education, and at 18, because you have to be 18 to drive in most of Central Europe, it was going to be, we're going somewhere. And I planned out for ages the route, the itinerary. We took his Ford Mondeo, which is I think a European only or not a North American version of the Ford Saloon. But we basically set off from London on a trip that took us to Amsterdam, to Berlin, to Prague, back via Munich and across, I think, to France and then back to the UK. And that really kicked a spark in me 18-year-old lost me on this journey I can particularly remember the Czech border, coming from the Czech Republic back into Germany, getting our car completely searched because they were adamant we must have some drink or some cigarettes or something, but absolutely nothing like that. I'll never forget that sense of adventure. That's really what I think kickstarted for me. Hold up, I need to get involved in more of this. And things like the Gumball 3000 and those supercar rallies and the idea of Cannonball across the USA or whatever it might be. The feeling has always been there, and now I get to plan out itineraries on a global scale. With all of the travel, there's a lot of time in the air, and there's a lot of time on the road. Now, I'm lucky to have a collection with a fair few cars now, but between them, I'm driving approximately 50,000 miles a year in my cars and 10,000 miles a year in press cars, loaner cars, test drive cars, which is, of course, a lot of time in a car. It's a lot of time sitting in something, heading somewhere, driver or passenger. In fact, I actually quite like passenger time as much as possible to get work done. I think a lot of people don't think of it that way, but if you're sitting on a long stretch somewhere, it can be very helpful to arrive with no emails that you have to face when you're running a company and businesses and stuff. But it adds up a lot. It adds up an awful lot, which means obviously a lot of maintenance, a lot of time looking after cars, a lot of new tires, a lot of servicing, and a lot of help to make sure all of that happens as well while I'm traveling. But in addition to that, there are also all of the ferries. And in Europe, we have the Eurotunnel that leads from the United Kingdom to France, the tunnel that goes under the English Channel, which is a fascinating concept to many people who have never experienced it. But you drive up with your car at one side, load your car while you're sitting in it onto a train, you stay in your car, it goes under the sea. 35 minutes later, you come out the other side and drive off, whether you're going to France or Belgium or the Netherlands or Germany or wherever it might be, which is a brilliant way of being able to get from one piece of land to another very easily without all of the loading onto a ferry. But I also take quite a few ferries, overnight ferries, if I'm around Italy or to Croatia or to Sardinia. Around Europe, they're all over the place. I also recently went out to Long Island and took a ferry up to Rhode Island, or up to Connecticut and across to Rhode Island from there. So lots of time at the sea and lots of time in the air. And the air, or airfare in particular, has become excruciatingly expensive in the last couple of years. So that's certainly something I've been trying to plan out a little bit more, rather than just hopping cross-continent for a day or two, which can be exhausting. It's not the best for anything, to be honest, in an environmentally friendly environment, or what we're trying to look more towards now. But to be somewhere for a longer period of time before moving on to the next. But it's still a lot of time on flights, a lot of time hopping between different destinations, and a lot of time literally on the move, traveling. There's the economic side of this, what it costs to go on these kind of adventures. And obviously, I'm looking at my channel and the content I create very much from a business perspective. I mean, I have to, at the end of the day, there's a bottom line. It has to make sense. It's not worth doing it if it's not going to work out. Of course, there's a personal interest in traveling. There's a fun of traveling. There's a very exciting feeling, meeting people, being in new places. But ultimately, it is business first and foremost. So prior to going anywhere, I'm looking at what does it cost to maybe send my car there, if it's intercontinental or if it's a transporter around Europe or within the UK. So there are the costs of that. There's the cost of the travel itself, the plane tickets, etc., the hotels. Then there's the other side of it. What am I going to do when I'm there? What am I producing? And I try and plan out where I'm going to go, who I'm going to visit, what I'm going to be filming, what events are taking place. But you have to be very fluid. I often compare what I do traveling and filming videos to, let's say, the chief editor of a newspaper. A story could land at any time that wasn't expected, and all of a sudden you're shuffling everything. You're moving what was on the front page, moving it back through the paper. You're dropping articles down to the next issue, the next magazine, the next issue of the newspaper, whatever it might be. And that's exactly the same in the content creation world. You don't know necessarily what opportunity might arise just because you've posted on your stories that you're in a city and somebody reaches out and all of a sudden there's something really cool to go and do. I've been lucky to find quite a few of those along the way. I have an idea of what I want to shoot, how many videos, what pace I want to go at, and I try and film something pretty much every day of the year. Over the entire time I've been doing this, over 13 years since I uploaded my first car video on YouTube, it has been on average more than one per day, which has been quite an undertaking. It actually totals over 1 billion views, which is absolutely surreal to me that that's been possible, over 5,000 videos. But it's still something I enjoy so much. I still absolutely love, as I always did, the chance to go and see something, the chance to go and drive a car that I've never experienced, to go and see a collection. I still stand there like a kid, just oogling everything around me. Like, how is this possible? How am I here? How am I doing this? And obviously, being able to transmit as much of that as I can through the videos, through the stuff that I shoot, to bring the viewer in, to bring the viewer along for that experience. And the tagline of my channel has actually, for a long time, been living the supercar dream. This is a dream for me, being around the supercars that I'm around and have in my garage as well. I want to be able to share as much of that. I always think, and I get the same vibe from so many people that I meet, that beyond owning a Ferrari, a Lamborghini, a cool car, the extra enjoyment you get from it is seeing how much other people can get a spark from that, how much you can inspire people, how much you can share something that people might not necessarily ever see in their own life, and what it would be like if they were able to. And I can't believe I'm fortunate enough to be in the position to do so, but it's the amount of planning and travel behind the scenes that sets all of this up. To be able to make this happen is quite literally 300 days a year on the road. It's phenomenal as an effort and an undertaking, but I'm going to make the most of every single opportunity that ever comes my way. Unless I physically can't, there will not be a no.
Caramel is the perfect hack for any private party vehicle transaction. They'll make your deal run faster, safer, and smoother than you ever thought possible. And Caramel works with any buying or selling platform because they step in after you've made a deal to take care of all of the paperwork for the transaction and also all the forms and paperwork that you need with any DMV in any state to get your car registered and titled. They protect both buyer and seller by safely verifying identities, and they connect to both bank accounts so that you don't have to worry about wire transfers, certifying checks, and all the other risks that usually go with a private party transaction. And for a limited time, Caramel is free to both buyers and sellers. Of course, you can add things like shipping and protection packages and things like that, but all of that is optional. So check them out now at drivecaramel.com or at the link in the description below.